It's July 31st at 9 a.m. We'll call the Wright County Board of Commissioners to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Filling in for Commissioner Dahleden, I will be filling in as chair today. We'll begin with the dispense of the minutes from July 24th. I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we dispense with the reading of the minutes and approve them as written.
I second that.
I got a motion by Commissioner Burrell, a second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussion? None. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, minutes are approved. Second, we'll look for an approval of today's agenda. If there's any modifications or additions.
Mr. Chair, seeing none, I will move the agenda for today.
Second.
I got a motion by Commissioner Hewsome, a second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thirdly, we're going to move down to the consent agenda. Does anyone want to remove anything from today's consent agenda for further discussion?
No, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Burrell. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda approved. Moving down to timed items, 9:02. Auditor Treasurer Bob Hevola.
Morning, Board. First time on the agenda, and Brian's not here, so we connected before here. This is to approve the City of St. Michael taking two city lots that were really bike paths. These parcels have forfeited, and the city is requesting that they be allowed to take them. So you have to adopt a resolution to allow that to happen. So again, you can see this first one is between the two houses. There is a bike path there. So the city would like to take that one. And the other one is right here, which is all that back area, again with a little bit of a bike path. So this is a public purpose board. They'd like to
Walking trail.
take these two parcels off of our hand. So do we have one resolution for all of them?
I just see the one for the
Okay.
two parcels.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I have spoken with Administrator Bott on these lots particularly, and they do definitely fit the public purpose what they're taking is, and with that I'd make a motion to approve the City of St. Michael, the resolution with the tax forfeit lands as prescribed in the packet.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Potter, a second by Commissioner Hewsome. This is a resolution. Charlie, want to begin?
Aye.
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 All right, resolution passes.
I was going to say I vote aye.
I was gonna say, did you vote twice?
Second item.
For the second item is, we have received back our audited financial statements. We are going to be putting them out on the website. I'm not going to delve into this because we set up a meeting with you guys next Tuesday to kind of dig into the components of it. We're also looking to show how we can present this via the OpenGov on the website. The whole CAFR will be out there right today. So I'm just releasing the audited financial statements to you today, just information only.
All right.
Okay.
That's all I
So
got.
we'll look, all right. Thank you. Alan Wilczek, we're right almost on time. By the time you get up here, it'll be 9:05.
Walk slow.
Good morning, Board. I'm here to request travel for our staff to do some training on detention hardware in the jail. We haven't had training of our staff on the controls, the micro switches, the locking mechanisms on the doors. Whenever we have issues, we kind of just dig into it and figure it out. So in communication with Captain Pat O'Malley, Hoffman, and our team, would like to request travel to go do some training on the Southern Steel equipment that we have in the jail. As we're, getting to the 10-year mark, we're, looking at issues and just making sure we have the person specifically trained in the hardware we have. We don't have a vendor that services it other than Russell Security works with us on some of the low voltage stuff, but otherwise the locking mechanism is we try to figure it out on our own. So looking to request travel. The conference or the training itself is $1,375 for the week. It's Tuesday through Friday, and then we would be looking for obviously the travel and lodging. We estimate about $1,000. Flights are about $350, and then lodging at $100 a night or whatever it is. So miscellaneous. We think the total spend would be about $2,300 to $2,400 total. So that would be on August 14th to 17th. So here just in a couple weeks.
I think you could make that up pretty quickly and money saved by bringing in outside vendors. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to authorize the out-of-state travel for the staff detention lock hardware
Second.
training. And just a clarification, this training coming out of the training budget, or do we have?
It would come out of our building maintenance and care budget. We have
Okay.
travel and meeting expense line item in there.
Yep, sounds good.
We got a motion by Commissioner Houston, a second by Commissioner Burrell. Any further discussions?
Mr. Chair, Alan, this is something that probably should have been done before.
Yeah.
And thank you for catching it now because, the time to avert a crisis is before the crisis is upon us. And I think this makes sense. Out of state is where we got to go, and that's for the public. Anytime there's out-of-state travel, they need to bring it to the board to authorize it. If it was in-state, it wouldn't be a problem. It'd been done already. But just to let the public know, anything out-of-state requires to come up here.
Yeah, Pat O'Malley, I think, has been requesting it kind of the team here to get it figured out, and he had forwarded some information. So thanks to him for digging into that, and I think it'll be really valuable for our team.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion prevails. And 9:08 in 1 minute, Sean Riley.
Walk even slower.
Yeah. Slower.
Close enough.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, County Board. The Minnesota Environmental Quality Board received a citizens petition. I will refer to it as the Ram excavation gravel pit request. It's been sent to us since we're the local unit of government to make a decision on the citizen petition of the EAW. You have a letter in front of you from Mr. Kreiser. We sat down and put together a memo on some of the potential environmental concerns of the project. And then you have some handouts on wetlands and floodplain and other bulletins on some of the issues. Greg's here to talk about what the process would be depending on your decision. I don't know if you have any initial questions about the material or where we are with the hearing,
Yeah.
the project.
Mr. Chair, I would think that it would be good to hear from Mr. Kreiser and just to let everyone know what's going on with this project.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hewsome, before you, we just need to follow the rules as established by the EQB. When a petition is received, we have 30 business days in which to render a final decision as to the citizen's petition. This was referred to us on July 10th, so 30 business days gives us to about August 21st. So we're here today mainly asking for direction as to which way you would like staff to draft a resolution. Really, at the end of the day here, you review whether or not the property may have the potential for significant environmental effects, or the project may have potential significant environmental effects. I also gave you some criteria in the memo that's from the EQB rules that you should review as part of your discussion.
Mr. Chair, Attorney Kreiser, we had, this is real similar to the one we had when the Sportsman's Club actually was proposing the expansion of the range. It's a similar request, except it's on the gravel side now, is that correct?
It's a similar process.
Okay.
The applications are different though.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and also during that time, Mr. Chair, we determined that an EAW was not
Required for that.
required for the
Sports.
shooting range. However, we're getting into a whole other subject here with the gravel being mined with the potential of lead particles getting into the gravel. So that does that does change
Yeah, but
things.
where the mining is would be nowhere near the range. I mean, there would not be any lead getting to the range. I don't know, did you make it out to the
I
site
couldn't, no, I
inspection?
couldn't
Oh,
make it
okay.
out that day.
Yeah, it's not, you would not, I mean, maybe we could have somebody from the Sportsman's Club speak to that, but it's quite a bit removed. I mean, you could shoot a rifle over there, but I don't think they're allowed to do that. But the shotgun, the shot would not get anywhere near this. But maybe Sean can address that even.
Mr. Chair, County Board, so our initial application has a component of the gravel mining behind the trap range shooting where a berm is being built. It's called the fallout zone. The applicant has indicated there's perhaps a need to modify that so we don't have an issue, but we don't have any documentation on that. What an EAW would potentially do is to delineate those variables to make sure there isn't a conflict or any environmental issues.
Commissioner Burrell, I'm going to kind of state that, I mean, this is a big stretch from where we originally were with an expansion of a shooting range to now we're looking at a change to a gravel pit. I mean, there's an adequate amount of concerns from an environmental side of it, what they're looking to do with this.
You could say that, I mean, but we have gravel mines all over the county. Most of them are near water, near the rivers, because that's where the sand and gravel built up. And if we're gonna require, now, I mean, it does have some peculiarities, I mean, but it's as far as the truck traffic maybe, because you're in a little bit more densely populated area, but the gravel mining itself, I don't see a huge difference. I mean, we're mining the gravel, they have a reclamation pond, plan, it will be a pond at the end, which we do all the time as well. I mean, I just don't want to, because it just seems like a group is throwing the red herring out to try to stop this project at everything. If we have to do all the extra paperwork every time we do a gravel mine near a river, I don't know if we're setting a precedent. And I know I talked with Sean everyone is different. I mean, you can't say that,
Right.
you can always, though this one's different than that one, yeah, they're all different, but they're all mining gravel and sand, and I don't know when you look at the big picture, if it really is all that different.
Mr. Chair, Charlie, the EAW versus EIS, two different animals, big time. If they were looking at EIS, I'd really have some serious concerns. Is it really raised to that level? The question I always have, and this is one thing that's always bothered me, of the 116 people that signed the petition, 43 are not even from the area. I mean, you'd be lucky to find this place on a map if you gave them directions. They're just people that sign petitions for anything. Those kind of bother me. I'd rather have the people that are local, that actually affects, be more of it, instead of just, we need 100 signatures, otherwise we can't go forward with this. Well, if you take out the 43 people, which is 37%, they don't have it, which, that's just a concern, because I like it where it's local people decide it, not somebody from Timbuktu or Saskatchewan chiming in on this. So those are my concerns. The other thing is, and I'll concur with Commissioner Hewsome, that when we went out there for the shooting range, that didn't seem like, this is a whole different animal.
It is a whole different animal.
And I'd have to believe that most gravel mining operations have some kind of EAW attached to them to start with. I don't know if all of them do.
Gravel mining? And Mr. Chair, Commissioner Potter, as far as gravel mining in and of itself, no. Most
Okay.
of them do not have an EAW attached to them, just for the gravel mining. I think from a staff perspective, our concern here with the environmental effects was the lead shot, getting into that borrow material. Just as a staff level, that was our main concern that we wanted to bring up to the board.
There's a good combination there. I mean, that's the reason that puts
Right.
me concerned. I mean, if we're separately, like you said, Commissioner Burrell, mining along a river, that's not really my concern, is the fact that we're putting river, mining, and a gun range, all three together. That's what makes the reason we have to at least kind of do our due diligence.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And Greg, Minnesota Rule 4410-1100, that's the one that's what you cited in your memo here. And the operative words here, proposed project, the project may have potential for significant environmental events, and that's, to me, that's the operative word when you're in the legal community. If there's a potential may have that, then that kind of precludes you to do something about it. If there was absolutely no chance in God's green earth that this would ever have a thing, that's pretty simple, but if that word may, I know those are little legal catchwords all the time. And, you know, then deny the petition if evidence presents may have potential significant environmental, but those are things, those are little words legalese when you've been playing in that deal, for those are ones that you got to be careful for. And my question to you, Mr. Kreiser, would be, with your memo here, you're pretty much advising the board to go ahead with the EAW on this process?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Potter, staff would never tell the board how to vote at the end of the day. We just simply raise what we feel is a concern to you, to point it out, and we let you make the ultimate decision at the end.
But you give us advice based on the law?
Yes. We're pointing out what could potentially be an environmental effect.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I too, reading more about this, and yeah, they needed so many signatures, but there are people that are basically not in Wright County, but they're in the area. They're just right, you know, they're right down the road, so they are affected by some of this. But I too feel that, you know, we need to just make sure going forward that this is an okay operation, and by doing an EAW, it's not saying no, you know, we're never going to have a gravel pit there, but we can do the study and find out if there is things that come up with the lead and that kind of thing that would need to be addressed, and therefore practices may need to change. But I think that in this case, I was supportive of not doing an EAW for the trap shooting part of it, but I believe that it would be the right thing to do an EAW for this.
Is that a motion?
Oh, go ahead. I can speak after a motion too if you want.
Sure, I'll make a motion,
Could-
Mr.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Houston, the motion would be to direct staff to draft a resolution to
Okay.
direct the issuance of an EAW.
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
And we'll
Mr.
come
Chair,
back. I'll put this back
I'll
on the
make a
agenda.
motion to-
Yeah, sorry.
I'll make a motion to direct staff to draft a resolution to recommend moving forward with an EAW. Is that right?
Yes.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And Mr. Chair, I guess I'm more intimately involved with this just sitting on the Planning and Zoning Board. And one thing that I've noticed throughout this process with the gun range, and I think you've seen a little bit of this group is one of the most upright organizations as far as putting both sides out there, doing everything within the resources that they have to mitigate, let's say, the noise, the different stuff. They did a sound study. They were not ordered to do a sound study. They did that on their own. A lot of things like that. The thing that I think we got to be careful of is, like I said before, we're kind of opening this up now. So now if a group gets around and does this every time we do a gravel mining, it's another impediment in business, and gravel mining and sand mining is a business. The other thing that I wanted to come back to though, with the group though, they are taking every precaution that, as far as with lead. The lead's not going to float up and go into the river. The lead kind of stays where it is, and it's not even going to be in the floodplain at all though. So I think I'm on the losing side of this, the way I'm kind of counting votes. But I just hope that we don't shut this down because a group of people signed their name on a petition. The other thing that I wanted to point out, and I'll be done after this, given what I mentioned before is they've done all these mitigation efforts for the sound, for different things at the gun control within their resources. If they're given more resources, they will do more. And they've already stated that at the planning and zoning meeting. I think they've stated it here at the county board. I was impressed, and I think we all were, with some of the mitigation things that they've done just on their own with their limited resources. Given this revenue from this mining operation, I think it actually is going to benefit all of the people that signed that thing as far as the gun range. And I mean, like I said, maybe I'm a little more intimately involved in the gravel stuff because we've done it now for coming up on 6 years for me anyway. And as long as these companies stick to their reclamation plan, that's one of the things we have had a problem with. We're pretty good with gravel mines, I think, you know, so. Anyway, I just leave it at that.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I concur with you, Commissioner Burrell, that they do run a very good program out there. They've been good stewards of the land. They've all, I'm not denying that, I just see that. My part of it is, if we were to deny the EAW, it could be challenging. You could be yourself in a heck of a bigger conundrum than just going through this, because I believe that the EAW is going to show little to no effect of this, and then they've got the clear path to go. But if we say, no, we're not going to do that, and it gets challenged, they're going to be spending a lot of money to try to prove that it is, and it's a slippery slope, and it's a very costly legal way when the lawyers start getting involved and somebody challenges. And I do agree with you. I don't think Byron and Minneota are exactly down the road from Delano. And some of these people here, and you got ones from Minneapolis, they seem like they sign pretty much everything that comes around anyway. I don't know if they find these people on Facebook or where they find these people at. But I do respect the ones that are live close and have concerns, which they should be addressed. But I do this, support the EAW, just in I think it's going to be long-term. You might not like that decision now, but I think it's going to be safer for you and a lot less expensive.
It could be. Oh, excuse me, Mike, I didn't.
And to get this done, because if somebody challenges this, then you're going to have a lot more legal issues than just this one, because that'll halt everything for a while, and you could get caught up into their little game, per se, for a long time, and not have a resolution to this. This way, they weren't looking for an EIS, they were looking for EAW. That's just a worksheet, and I believe it's going to pan out with the maps that you're seeing here, that it's going to have virtually no effect on this, and that's how the conclusion is going to come up. But you got to go through a process.
I'm going to make one comment back regarding the petition. I think, environmental impacts travel. So regardless of whether the people live near it or not, what the impact of it if you're hauling the item out of there, who knows where that gravel could be hauled to, where that lead, if it was in there, could impact somebody in any of these areas. And that's the petition is rightfully so. Whoever wants to sign any petition regarding environmental impact, they just care for it because they don't know where the groundwater is going to go, where the dirt's going to go, and they want to make sure that their backyard's protected. So, and that's the reason I'm saying that. I don't want to dilute down that somebody from Wayzata would sign that petition.
And Mr. Chair, with all due respect, I think you're giving some people a lot more credit than they're actually diving that deep into this. Some people sign petitions just because, I hate Trump, or I love the whales or something. They'll sign anything just because. I would question some people's, how deep they dived into this, where they care about some lead particulates all of a sudden in the gravel. And I'm just going to pick on Byron because that's quite a stretch to get gravel from here. You can go to Byron because the trucking costs will eat your lunch. But, in all due respect for them, but I question whether some of them really are thinking that deep, or they're just against everything.
Now, Mike prompted one more comment, but, and this won't be, it more than likely will not be part of this study, but like I said, I mentioned it before, with the resources that are generated here, we will be able to do more things. And then it was also brought out, I think this was at the Planning Commission, but lead, if they have the resources, they can recover from the shooting range. They'll be set up way better than they are now to recover that lead. And then the lead is not it does not stay lead all the time. It actually does naturally decay and becomes inert after a period of time, so. I didn't know that, but that was the testimony that we heard, so.
And hopefully the EAW, I mean, this isn't our attempt to stop, but the EAW will address those items.
I hope, and I want to say I appreciate you got, you three here, because I think you will keep an open mind, and I trust that it will get done. I just hope it doesn't railroad the project and put too many obstacles in the way, so. I'll be voting the other way, but I appreciate your viewpoints.
Mr. Chair, I think that it's just good practice to, reclaim your lead after shooting. When we shot in the St. Paul Police Academy, we had to go and pick up all of our casings after we shot. So it's just we kept them clean.
They already pick up their casing, but they
All right, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion prevails 3-1.
All right, Mr. Chair, just for the board's information, I anticipate that'll be on the agenda for August 14th.
Okay. All right, we're moving along here. We're already down to items for consideration. Committee minutes. We're going to start off with the July 25th Building Committee minutes. Commissioner Potter.
Let me get to that here. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Building Committee met on July 25th, 2018. Members present, Commissioner Burrell, Commissioner Houston, for myself, Ellen Wilczek, others present, Derringer, Kelly, Meyer, Asselson, Dahl, Hoffman, Schwartzman, Thompson, and from AMP. And basically, the subject matter was the Sheriff's Office Range Project. And Wilczek opened up a statement. Purpose of the meeting was to discuss updates on the project and architectural proposals. We do have some architectural proposals in the back that are under review with us right now. Both Wold and BKV are very qualified firms and provide good service. Like I said, I did look over these, and both of them definitely have quite the pedigree on doing these types of projects. Wold's fee was slightly lower, however, the BKV proposal includes services from TRS and WENC that drive their pre-design higher. Wilczek indicated it would be very likely that additional firms would be brought on if Wold were to select it, so it's not specified and already included in the proposal. This is kind of a high level, what do you think it's going to be? We haven't gotten into the bolts and nuts of everything yet. Lisa said she'd like to see a couple firms working on projects to keep the pricing more input competitive, which is definitely good. More people that can put a price in, the better price we seem to get. And both firms have provided good service on previous projects. We have experience with both of them. Hoffman commented that the BKV is doing Justice Center and Government Center design, maybe some benefits to doing it as well. There is that component within there, but still the board will decide which way to go on this. There's an understanding of the multiple sites that need to make them all to work together. Wilczek also said this, asked about the BKP staffing capabilities. Schwartzman indicated that dedicated staff have no concerns with the resources. They tend to have enough, let's say, horses in the stable to get the job done. It appears that way from what they have there. And Coordinator Kelly also presented information on the fiber availability. Currently, IT is communicating with Windstream and City of Buffalo. Tagaro dug in further, and they will have more information soon. Again, that's one of the big components there. Infrastructure believed to be at 35 and 8. It's reported to be older and not actively utilized, so that you got to ask that question, what's going on there, and can it be utilized? Everything else going on with that. So more information on to come. The other one is to talk to City of Buffalo how much it costs to bring the fiber out if that other line is not utilized. Those are questions that will be answered here. So the point is, it's just a recommendation to bring Wold and VKV in, proposals to the full board for final selection, and that's where we're at right now. We just got those proposals last week and been reading through them and seeing what's going on. Like I say, and it's just still at the discussion stage at this point in time. No decisions have been made. Long before it gets there, it'll be the final board decision. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll approve the minutes and the recommendation.
I'll second that. With a question, will we be setting a meeting? Or
A committee of the whole?
is that a committee of the whole to discuss this?
I believe that was the objective, is to get a
Right,
committee of the whole.
that is, I was just, we didn't actually put that in to set a date, but I think we need to figure out,
It's also tough
sooner
to
rather
set a
than
day
later.
without Commissioner Lydon here, because I don't know his schedule.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Good morning, Board. Just to clarify, from the building committee, we had discussions about bringing it here, and kind of with the presumption that there would have been some review and discussion here, and if there was too much time here, or didn't want to discuss it here, then we'd set the committee of the whole. So,
So we'll wait till next week and we'll set a committee of the whole? All right.
So, yeah, Mr. Chair,
You-
Coordinator Kelly, would it work to set it as an agenda item, or shall we set? Committee of the whole is, I mean, we've already got two next.
We do have quite a bit of committee of the whole meetings coming up, as you know, and of course, this project does have a timeline associated with it, so it'd be nice to move on it sooner than later. If you
Piggyback
don't
it.
feel prepared to discuss it right now, having seen the proposals, I would propose to either put it on next Tuesday. Sooner would be better if you're not.
Do you want to just add it to the committee of the whole on next Tuesday, the 7th? And just make it a longer one? We have two. We have one at 10:30 and one at 1. I mean, Mark already approved those two meetings, so
We could add it to a standing agenda item, or a standing agenda.
Agenda item?
I mean, it's up to you, the group here. I mean, I'm okay if Tuesday's longer, if you guys, we couldn't do it in the 10:30 one, but we could add it to the 1 o'clock one.
And Mr. Chair, that would fit in, because my point is to make sure that Commissioner Lydon, he's available for it, so it matches, but if we're already here for that, hopefully that makes his, I don't know what his schedule is later in the day, and that's a concern. I don't want to schedule things for him without him being here, although Tuesday we're already here, so I'd imagine that it would be fine.
I mean, if you guys were
And
time
we can
sensitive to
tentatively
it.
schedule it for that, and if it doesn't work, Commissioner Lydon can say that's not going to work because A, B, and C, and we can push it off.
All right.
So,
That was, I'm sorry, I probably got
let's
us
take,
off track.
that's
from
okay. So let's,
actually-
first of all, I got a motion and a second on the minutes. Any further discussion or on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So the minutes and the recommendations are approved for the building minutes. Do you guys want to do a real quick of a committee of the whole motion to add it on to the 7th? Before we go on? To the 1 o'clock?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to add discussion of the proposals to the committee of the whole, August 7th, and add it into the discussion at the 1 o'clock timeframe.
Okay. We got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right. With that, we'll move on to the Committee of the Whole for the AM on the July 24th. Commissioner Hewsome regarding cemeteries.
Okay, abandoned cemeteries. We met on July 24th, members present, the commissioners and Lee Kelly, and also Asselson, Nath, Pete Thompson, and John Peterson. The discussion was abandoned cemeteries. This came up because we had a request from a citizen to be buried in one of our abandoned cemeteries because his family is there. And so Asselson reviewed Minnesota statutes 306.243 and 306.245 relating to abandoned cemeteries, and the county has not historically expended any funds for maintenance of abandoned cemeteries, but have allowed groups to oversee and also to maintain them. I requested a process to be developed to, to guide us to know how to proceed when the county receives a request from a resident to be buried. And many of the entities that were created to maintain these cemeteries are no longer in existence, and there are limited or no records available in some of these cemeteries. So we discussed how to determine where people were buried, because that's the other thing. Often the grave sites aren't marked or platted, and many don't have legal descriptions. So Attorney John Peterson was here and had been through a process with another abandoned cemetery. And he suggested that there should be an agreement on cemetery names. Currently, they're known by different names by different residents, and the county could consider providing signage displaying the official name once it's determined. And also, the Office of the State Archaeologist has assisted in identifying locations of graves using the ground-penetrating radar. And Peterson suggested that the OSA could assist in surveying the German Methodist Episcopal Church Cemetery where the individual wished to be buried. Delighten suggested the board could decide who is responsible to maintain these cemeteries. Peterson noted other municipal jurisdictions often don't want to take on that responsibility, and groups are usually looking for money for maintenance. Asselson noticed that the statute indicated the County Highway Department is responsible for maintenance of abandoned cemeteries. It was suggested additional information should be added to the list of cemeteries in the county received from the OSA. The list should include information of the person or group that's maintaining each cemetery, and parcel identification numbers and other location information should also be included. And a lot of these cemeteries don't have addresses, and I had a request from a vet who was looking to get a marker for a Civil War veteran, and one of the things that he needed to send this in to the VA was an address. So that's kind of where part of this discussion started. And Paula Thompson noted that she located many legal documents related to the various cemeteries in the county and found deeds from individuals that initially donated the land and the names of the cemeteries. In a few instances, there are grave sites in the middle of plats, so that's another thing that if they're in the middle of a farm field or whatever, often they're just, you know, kind of put a fence or something around them to preserve them. So the process for how to proceed with when the county receives a request from a resident to be buried in an abandoned cemetery was discussed. And Asselson felt there was not a statute that gave the county authority to grant permission to be buried in an abandoned cemetery. Peterson noted that a permit for burial must be issued by the state to be buried in any cemetery. The consensus was that a funeral home director could request burial in the abandoned cemetery at the time of applying for burial permit. Recommendation: Thompson will gather land records information and provide PID, property identification numbers for cemeteries. Asselson to reach out to the Office of the State Archaeologist regarding the German Methodist Cemetery. So that is where we are. And we also, at the Township Officers meeting, we did give them the list of all the cemeteries that we know of in the county. Yep, several pages. And so we asked if they would review that, and if they find any other cemeteries that we don't have listed there, or a few graves or whatever, if they give us that information, so.
And Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Hewsome, we also talked, there's an abandoned cemetery in Woodland that I talked about with, there's a family member that's still living, and very important to her to have that cemetery not necessarily even maintained, but recognized, you know.
Right.
And I'm wondering if, would it be asking too much to have in the recommendation to also have Brian address the concerns with they call it the Ruckles Lake Cemetery? Would that be all right with the rest of the board?
I don't know. I'm fine with that. I mean, we discussed it.
We discussed it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yep.
Or as long as Brian knows that we want him to work on that too, then we can leave it the way it is. So.
Okay.
Either way,
All right, thank you.
you have a motion?
I will move the minutes and the recommendation with including
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Burrell's addition to the.
I appreciate that. I'll second.
Yeah,
I know we talked
minutes,
about
we
it, but it
could,
didn't
we could
really-
add that, we had discussion on that cemetery.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We
I'll
have a
second.
motion by Commissioner Hewsome, a second by Commissioner Burrell. Any further discussion? Otherwise, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So we'll be adding the Ruckles Lake as part of that recommendation.
For Osselson to discuss with the state
Yeah.
archaeologist?
Yep.
Okay.
Because there's some different concerns there, but Brian's pretty well aware of them, actually, so.
Sure.
All right. Moving down to the PM from July 24th, Mr. Kelly, would you like to take over the buffer?
Yes, sir. We had a second committee of the whole on that same afternoon with all 5 commissioners in attendance, including myself, Kreiser, Hevola, Wright, Detchen, and Virgin. Our topic was the utilization of the buffer enforcement funding and equipment to maintain the ditch systems. Matt Detchen addressed the recent situation where flooding occurred along County Road 75 and cost to repair the road to make this no longer a drainage issue were $1.75 to $2.5 million, but a drone inspection revealed there was a beaver dam causing flooding issues. Just to fix that issue, it would have cost the county about $40,000. Detchen recommended the committee of the whole consider acquisition of a drone for inspecting the county's ditch system. Currently, we hire this out and would cost the county $78,000 for a single flyover if we did it for every ditch system we have. Drone would only cost $8,176 and an annual software cost of $3,000. This allows the county to fly over the system as needed, seeing the before and after conditions. This is a slightly different drone than what is operated by the Sheriff's Department. As noted, there are $97,400 in funds coming from the Bowser buffer strip enforcement. We discussed cleaning out ditch system and the associated costs when wetlands involved, which 84 of our system involves wetlands. It makes the costs increase. I've cited the recent example with County Ditch 36 and Rice Lake. To dredge this would be about $175,000 and need to be done every 3 to 5 years. So most common issues with the system are cattails and beaver dams. Detchen suggested acquiring a unit called a MobiTrack, which can be used in a wetland for removal of cattails and beaver dams, but no work that would require wetland mitigation under the Wetland Conservation Act. It was questioned who would operate the equipment. No CDL or special license is required to operate it, although it was recommended that either highway or parks maintenance employees do this. So to order the MobiTrack with a bucket, cutter, rake, no dredging equipment, the cost would be $96,000. It can be charged back through the maintenance of the system to the benefiting properties. This enables the county to correct situations much quicker and not have to seek out a contractor. It would not become an issue with competition of local contractors since there's no one in the area. The closest one is Spirit Lake, Iowa, that provides this service. So it'd be a convenience, and the farming areas would see immediate relief in regard to flooding issues, preventing crop damage. So Detchen was going to come back with some final costs. The recommendation was to proceed with the acquisition of the drone in 2018 using the Bowser funds. Authorize acquisition of the MobiTrack in 2019 as well. And then we discussed allocating the wages of the Ag and Drainage Coordinator with 25% to buffer enforcement, 25% to benefited landowners of ditches, and 50% to the general fund. Detchen will provide the board with final costs and delivery dates of the equipment. And the second item we had was regarding the License Bureau and Switchboard. Tammy Wright addressed the committee on the matter of coverage for the switchboard in the front reception area out here in the lobby. Now that we've installed some kiosk signage, the question is whether the position is still required. They would like to reallocate that office tech out there to the License Bureau due to the current demands. Wright stated deliveries and pickups can occur at any department, doesn't need to be at the front desk, and noted that this person is limited to the work they can perform while in a public area. Burrell said he values that position as it does provide a service. We discussed some different options, allowing the License Bureau to utilize the Office Tech 1, having administration take over that reception area. Indicated that if added a position, the preference would be to an administrative specialist to assist with minutes, but backing up that position would be problematic for administration due to the small number of staff trying to cover breaks, vacations, and backing up other situations. Delighten said he'd be supportive of utilizing part-time staff for this area. In the past, we haven't utilized many part-time positions, but he would like to see that looked at. Assistant Coordinator Virgin suggested the county may want to look at the option of using volunteers at the reception area. So the recommendation was to proceed to pursue recruitment of volunteers for the switchboard reception area for 2 weeks. Report back to the board. If there's no interest, we can meet again as a committee of the whole and explore options on how to staff the reception area. Once the solution is resolved for that area, the auditor treasurer can move that office tech staff to the license bureau. The minutes and the recommendations.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendation.
I'll second that with one suggestion to just spell out what OT 1 is, Office Tech 1.
Okay. And I believe Bob had a comment.
All right.
Yeah,
Division.
Commissioners, if I can go back to the recommendations from the first meeting, here we talked about that we would use 25% of the Bowser grant to offset the egg drainage coordinator wages and benefits, 25% alleviating the spread to the ditch systems. Currently, we allocate half of Matt's wages and benefits to the ditch system and half of it to spread against the benefit landowners. So in essence, we'd be reducing that amount, that 50%, down by 25%. I just want to make sure that's clear. And then we talked about using the remaining part of that to buy the drone, but then also in 19 to buy that MobiTrack. This has a budgetary constraint on my budget. Would we budget this as part of the ditch fund? And then just so you know that the MobiTrack is going to cost a lot more than that 50% of the grant. So it'd be, we would buy it, but then we'd take a couple years to pay it back.
Yep, that was the intent, that we'd spread it out over 3 years, and you're probably, I mean, you're gonna see a spike. I don't know how you're gonna work that within your budget to cover the upfront cost and then bill it back over the next.
Well, Board, my idea would be to put the grant in the ditch fund. Remember, we have the general ditch?
Yep.
As part of the ditch fund. Put it in there, accept the fact that that fund would go in the hole for the first year, and then we'll just replenish it back with the grant.
Okay.
And then what we do is transfer money from that general ditch fund back to the auditor treasurer's budget to offset part of his wages.
That works.
Okay? So then I won't put this in my budget. Well, the drone and all that will come out of the general ditch fund.
Fine. Yep.
Okay?
So were there any corrections we should make to the
Do
recommendation
you want to
then?
put, do you want it spelled out
Feel
in the
it.
minutes there, Bob, as that this stuff will be paid out of the general ditch fund? As far as and you tell me if it needs to be in there.
Yeah, we need to correct that.
We didn't really spell out how it was, where the funds were actually coming out.
We didn't.
So maybe if we just said that the MobiTrack will be out of the funds in the general ditch fund.
And Mr. Chair, since this is going to come back with final costs and that could be part of the discussion there where to filter this out so everybody has a chance to
That's
review
true.
it, see it, and make a decision based on what's before us
That's true.
at that time.
That work?
Sure, it wasn't brought up in the meeting, and these minutes are of that meeting, but it'd be my recommendation that we take the Bowser grant and put it in the general ditch fund. And then,
Because all of the stuff that's getting paid for is for the ditch, whether it's his wage or it's the MobiTrack or the drone. So
Right.
I would assume we put all $97,400 in the ditch fund, and then over the next 3 years, we'll reconcile it back to the county.
exactly.
Yep,
Right.
okay.
But that
Is
does
it-
not have to be part of the minutes or the recommendations,
I
since
don't-
we didn't
Right.
discuss it.
It's just procedurally
We didn't-
how we
right,
actually-
We didn't
yeah.
discuss it at that
Correct,
specifically.
we didn't discuss it there.
We didn't discuss it at the meeting, so.
All right.
Well, Board, to be concise, my concern is that they allocate the wages of the egg drainage coordinator at 25% and 25% to the buffer enforcement. Just remember, we are already paying 50%. That is a reduction of our 50%.
And that was, we did discuss that.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
All right. You have a motion for the minutes by Commissioner Potter, and there was a second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, now we're moving on to the Owners Committee. Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Owners Committee, which has to do with the Justice Center construction, met on July 18th. It's a monthly meeting for just basically updates on what's going on out there. Myself, Commissioner Burrell were there, Judge McPherson, McMillan, Kelly, Hoffman, Wilczek, Paulson, Curry, those are with the Integrity Group, and Pete Philippi, also with the Integrity Group. Lee Kelly was there, and Anthony Enright from BKV was there. Mitch Paulson, like I say, he's the project manager out there for us. The Justice Center update, Wilczek opened a meeting, asked the Integrity Group walk through the agenda meetings, and it's kind of interesting when you get a schedule of how things are going on. You can kind of follow along, coordinate how part has to happen before a second one can begin. Also provided updates on the project and current construction status. He indicated structural metals will be coming in the week of the 23rd, and I was out there yesterday, and they are putting the metal superstructure up as we speak, and it's commenced already. The minutes reflect it'll be commencing shortly. Currently, the footings, concrete pads, stacking the elevator shaft blocks are in focus. The one shaft for the one elevator bank is up there quite a bit, but still more to add onto that. It's going well at this point. Only one additional rain day has been lost in the past meeting, which is nice to have gravel out there because rain days are a little bit easier to overcome versus clay. Curry continued through the agenda review, the schedule and the budget. No significant items were identified or issues concerned. Noted that the invoice for the builder's risk insurance received at $38,278. When noted in the budget, there was an allowance of $65,000 because that was we guessed what it would be. It came in better, which is kind of nice. A current change order log reviewed. No new items were presented that were not previously identified in 627. And I asked if we have the final numbers for the earthwork change order, and Paulson indicated we do not have those as of yet, because as you recall, when we found the black dirt, it was a change order, and I'd like to see what the final numbers, get that in a minute so we can, what we anticipated and what it actually cost. To refresh people's memory, we had a cost not to exceed $50,000, which was a little bit generous, but until you start digging a hole, you can guess what it is until you get the final numbers. Curry and Paulson say they would get to work on to get the topo measurements complete to close this item out. And the next discussion was the 800 megahertz antenna on the LEC was discussed, and clarified the equipment is being moved to the east end of the LEC, like on top of the jail pods, for people that are familiar with the building, to move the signal around the construction and connect with the public works. Well, we'll check noted further. The long-term plan will be developed at a later meeting. Potentially, there may need to be an antenna mount on the roof of the Justice Center. So just for a little bit update, because we bounced off that to get the MnDOT tower south of town here. The final version would probably be a tower that's big enough to get the Enfield tower and that, so we got the redundancy to make sure we don't have an issue in the future there. And so that'll come up again later. Paulson noted the door at the southwest LEC stairwell in the south window at the first floor would be removed soon. That's where it will butt up to and connect to the law enforcement center. So the hallway there will not be able to be used. Hoffman asked about the fire exit and code-related concerns. So we got that discussion going on. Paulson indicated the concerns will be reviewed, plans solidified before anything was removed or filled. We got to make sure we still have our fire code, our exits are properly marked and still meet the codes and recommendations that we need. And there's no recommendations at this meeting. The next meeting will be August 15th. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, and there is no recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Potter, a second by Commissioner Burrell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we're moving along quickly here. Now we're all the way up to the Personnel Committee minutes from July 25th. Christine?
Yep. Okay, thank you. The Personnel Employee Relations Committee met on July 25th. Members present, Derek Vetch in for Mark DeLayden, Hewsome, Sean Johnson, others present, Jill Marzine, Jessica Nelson, Lori Pollock, Donnie Dieters, Virgil Hawkins, Adam Tagaro, and Lee Kelly. And the first item was the Health and Human Services request to extend part-time staffing hours for social services. And Jill Marzine, Social Services Supervisor, presented that in the last 21 months, the Family Intervention Services units have seen more than 100% turnover in their unit. Of the 7 positions in ongoing child protection, 9 staff members have either moved to another position within the agency or left for various reasons, so they have not been fully staffed since November of 2017. That due to the high turnover and ongoing training needs, high caseloads, it's not working well at all. It's been a strain for the existing 28 staff in social services. So her request is to increase the hours of 2 part-time staff from 20 hours per week to 32 hours per week, and that the 2 staff would take on some of the training responsibilities of the new child protection staff, as well as some ongoing support consultation. She'd like to increase the work hours of these 2 staff members at the beginning of the new pay period, and this increase in work hours would continue through March 30th, 2019, and be reevaluated at a later date. And I questioned if both employees were willing to temporarily increase their work hours. Marzine said they already have discussed the scenario, and they're both agreeable. Commissioner Vetch asked if this would make them benefit eligible, and Lori Pollock, the Assistant HR Director, said that the 2 employees are already eligible for benefits and currently waiving their health benefits. However, the county would need to increase their vacation accruals. I asked if at some point the 2 employees would consider becoming full-time, or if they preferred part-time part-time status, and Marzine stated that one of the employees has expressed some interest, and that might be something she considers in the future. Jessica Nelson, Social Services Supervisor, commented that the other part-time employee could be used to be a full-time staff, but she hadn't had the discussion with her. Vetch commented that this proposal must be budgetary neutral for the year, since there are enough unfilled positions. Nelson agreed, and that the added hours would be used to help with offering more agency-wide training for the Child Protection Agency. Sean Johnson, HR Director, mentioned that from HR and from a payroll perspective, the main concern is consistency. The employees need to be scheduled for a set number of hours per week and not jump around from one week to the next. So they need to take that into consideration. Nelson said they would like to have 2 part-time employees work 32 hours through March 30th, 2019. Nelson stated that they would come back to the committee at a future date if they would like to continue with this work schedule. And Commissioner Vetch and I both agreed to increase the 2 part-time staff from 20 hours to 32 hours per week. Recommendation, that is a recommendation. Approve HHS request to extend 2 part-time staffing hours for social services to 32 hours per week or 64 hours per pay period beginning August 13th, 2018 through March 30th, 2019. The second item was a performance review, Virgil Hawkins, Highway Engineer. And Virgil Hawkins, Highway Engineer, based on 5 performance evaluations, receives the Personnel Committee recommends a rating of exceeds expectations. And Adam Tagaro, Information Technology, Performance Appraisal, Tagaro, Information Technology Director, based on 5 performance evaluations, received the Personnel Committee recommends a rating of meets expectations. With that, Mr. Chair, I was thinking it exceeds, but I will move the minutes and the recommendations.
All right.
Second that.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Hewsome, a second by Commissioner Burrell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we're moving forward here to the Technology Committee minutes from July 24th, or 25th, I'm sorry. Christine, you want to take us through since you're...
Sure, except that, here, I had to look for my second page here. The Information Technology Committee met on Wednesday, July 25th, 2018. Members present, Commissioner Burrell, Hewsome, Tagaro, Pat Spouty, Olga Strobel, Sherry Nelson, Christine Partlow, Tanya West, Mike McMillan, Todd Hoffman, Virgil Hawkins, Lindsay Meyer, and others present, Britta Holland, Scott Weiland, Andrea Benedict, and Jen Rassett. And the first item was the Enterprise Resource Planning Update. And Adam Tagaro, IT Director, stated that Lee Kelly, County Coordinators, has been in contact with Infotech for the scheduled September meeting, so plans continue. No update beyond this. So the recommendation is informational only. The 365 update, Adam Tagaro stated that the Pro-Cheese, Pro-Cheese? Is that a misspelling? or-
ProSci Solutions.
Yeah. The solutions will be utilized as a vendor to assist in the 365 SharePoint online project. They will be helping with the discovery piece of planning when necessary data movements. With the discovery piece of planning the necessary data movements. The project has already identified that our current Nintex-based workflows may need to be reviewed as part of the move to online. Tagaro stated that the online usage of Nintex results in a more costly tool than the on-premise version currently in use. Commissioner Burrell questioned how much more, to which Tagaro responded $40,000 in maintenance would likely be the yearly renewal compared to $10,000. Commissioner agreed that is a hard sum to swallow. Tagaro reassured that IT would be looking at new SharePoint tools that are available that could be instituted in place of the current Nintex workflows, that the goal is to retain current functionality while finding a cost-effective solution. Commissioners asked for an example of what workflow is currently using Nintex. Tagaro offered the assessor's online homestead application as one high-usage item. IT will continue to research the SharePoint Nintex workflows. With 2019 budgets currently being worked on, Deputy Hoffman asked for clarification on the 365 licenses. Sherry Nelson, IT Manager, provided that the process will be for IT to budget for the 365 license renewal and maintenance for the entire county. No chargeback will take place there. New licenses needed throughout the year will need to be purchased by the departments via IT. The committee did discuss that this process will need to be developed. Nelson and Tagaro stated that IT is working on the license tracking process. Virgil Hawkins, County Highway Engineer, agreed that a tracking system would be helpful as he has perpetually vacant positions. However, licensing has been retained for them. His department would like to ensure that they don't have to buy new ones once this position becomes filled. Deputy Hoffman also questions if license scan can be reused and transferred. Nelson stated they can be transferred. Tagaro also brought up that IT has a set of buffer licenses for position transitions. Nelson also updated that the project involving squad cars moving to 365 has been on hold for the time being. The Sheriff's Department and IT agree that the upcoming move to 365 online could provide a better solution for the squads. The current office client will be utilized for now, working as shared devices. The project will be revisited in the fall. Again, informational only. The IT project portfolio update. Britta Holland, IT portfolio analyst, updated the committee that 31 projects have been closed so far for 2018 in comparison to 2017 when they had a total of 38 projects. And Holland presented the placement of the scoped assessors electronic document management system, the EDMS. This was split from one project to two projects, one strategic and one discretionary. The discretionary project is the archiving of the homestead applications. Finishing this project will provide the necessary process and model for the strategic project of assessing the remainder of the assessor applications. The committee agreed with placement of both projects. We're working on the list of projects that our hold status might need to be revisited. This was brought to the attention of IT due to a Health and Human Services project that was on schedule in May, but then delayed indefinitely by the state of Minnesota. So that's part of the challenge is we're ready on our end, but the state isn't necessarily ready on their end, so that puts things on hold. Pat Spouty, IT manager, summarized it would be good to revisit the placement of a project when it moves from hold to active due to changes that might have occurred during that time. So that's another concern. Chief Deputy Hoffman stated that he understood the resource available may significantly alter the flow of the project. Deputy Hoffman stated that he understood the reasoning behind reprioritizing whole project, but questioned when the project becomes active if having to bring it back to the committee will create unnecessary delays. Holland confirmed that for discretionary projects that the departments are in control of the prioritization of their own lists. After committee discussion, Holland concluded that she will review any changes in hold status priority with departments as well as verify accuracy of project status. She'll also continue to include hold status projects in her monthly updates to departments. And the recommendation is informational only. The confirmed placement of assessor EDMS projects, and Holland will discuss with department any changes in their hold status projects. So, Mr. Chair, with that, I will move the minutes and the recommendations.
All right, do you have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, and down to our last minutes here.
A lot of meetings.
We had a lot of meetings.
Commissioner Burrell, Ways and Means.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vetch. The Ways and Means Committee met on July 25th. Commissioner Hewsome, I, and Lee Kelly, along with some other staff members, were present. The main thing that we talked about, there were two things. The first one up was the fairground lease agreement. We've been working on this for, I want to say, a year, Chris? Maybe more. We've gone back and forth with the Fair Board and whatever, and we are very, very close right now. It's just some minor changes, and we actually, it was so minor that we told Chief Attorney Asselson to go ahead and make the changes and get it out to the Fair Board for their signatures,
Kind of little
and then it will
language.
come back to the
Yeah.
to the county board. And it's a 20-year lease, $1 a year. Basically, it's kind of I can't think of the word.
Status?
No, it gives them it's their property in case there were some legal things like that, indemnifies them, I should say. So, along with other things too. So anyway, the recommendation was to just have Chief Deputy Attorney Asselson get it to the Fair Board and then back to the County Board for approval. The next thing up was information on the new proposed administration building that would be out near the Law Enforcement Center. And I know there's been discussion both ways on that with, different options. And I think this came from Commissioner DeLayden, I'm pretty sure. But what he wants to do is on the website, just have kind of, we talked about it, kind of like a point counterpoint. So the argument for the administration building, and with pretty good detail where people could go through and read through it, and then the option to stay here and do very minimal. I don't think we're going to have one to do the remodel because there's
Well,
nobody on the board that supported it.
But that's up to the people, to take a look at it.
I think you have to remodel.
We need to have all three options there because those were the options that we had.
Okay, that's fine, we can do that too. I just wouldn't be able to put very much good stuff in on that option.
I just think
Yeah.
if we're doing this, we're going to present this as a
Right.
committee of the whole, correct, what we're going to put out there on it, because
Well,
it's not cut and dry.
It has to be part of the
No,
discussion.
no, but, and I said, somebody can take the viewpoint of putting it out there, the interest rates are cheap right now, building costs will be higher in the future, and that whole argument, and then I think me, or maybe me, would have the one about staying here and doing very minimal, just next to nothing, just to buy us some time and maybe put some money aside for the future project. Because I think we all agree that eventually it will be out there. So it's just when is kind of the...
Right.
Yep.
And Mr. Chair, and the recommendation really is, the remodel has to be part of that because we got
Okay.
all that information.
Okay.
And of what it would cost to stay here and remodel, and for, I think Commissioner DeLayden said for up to 20 years or whatever, that.
Yep, so anyway, the recommendation is to draft and post the information on the county website regarding the options the governor sent. So building a new one out at the law enforcement center near there, remodel the existing building, which Commissioner Houston just talked about, or do very minimal maintenance just to kind of bring some of the people back from the human services building and kind of, and keep everything kind of the way it is for the most part, so. And that was the recommendation to do. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll move forth the minutes. Oh, you know what? Did I have IT? That's not me.
That's
That's
it.
something else.
You're
Okay,
good.
never mind.
That's the one I was just
Okay.
looking for.
Yeah, that is.
On the back, I
kinda
know.
on the back.
It threw me off.
Okay, so with that, Mr. Chair, I'll move forth the minutes and the recommendations.
I'll second
All
that.
right, we have a motion and a second. Coordinator Kelly, you kind of clear on what we're doing with that? We're going to do all three options, and then I'm guessing, before we go live on any of it, we're going to be able to have an understanding of, that we're all in agreement of what information's on there, just so we're all telling the same story.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we had some discussions up in our office about this recommendation yesterday. I wanted to touch base also with Commissioner DeLayden because I think he had a vision, which I've had not the opportunity to discuss with him yet, on how this looks. But yeah, we can put some things together. I think it's also important to be clear on what area of the discussion we're in. I took this recommendation as we're proposing to put out information on why we move forward and the way we move forward. And this is to inform, not to necessarily seek input on the decision that's already been moved forward with.
Right, I think
Yeah.
you're exactly right. It's just so that the general public and any voters, whatever, constituents, can see the rationale that we took into, for making
Well, I want
our
to
different
summarize all the information that we were given
Yeah,
that led us to our decision.
Exactly, that
Exactly.
we're given, and I agree. I mean, we're at the point we're at, but we want them to see the information that we have that has led us to this point, so.
Correct.
Yep.
And there has been quite a bit of work that's gone into this.
There has.
It's been a process
It
that's.
has, definitely.
It's been
I mean, we've been involved with this
here already.
for many, many months now, and, yeah, so.
I have files full of papers.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And for the general public,
Oh, did we vote on that?
No.
No, we're.
this is the discussion
Okay.
part.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for the public, what it is we've spent a lot of time trying to beat every horse to death, which way to go, which way the wind blows. What the ultimate final decision will be based on is what is good for the long term of Wright County and how does it fit into budgeting, debt service, budget, everything like that. We haven't made a decision on anything yet. We got a couple of us that lean one way versus another, but we still haven't come to the fruition of which way we're
Right.
going. I just want to update the public that we have taken this serious. We have looked at a lot of different options. How do we do this without being such a burden to the taxpayer, and when is it prudent? And there's discussion on whether, if we did a remodel, whether it would actually last 20 years or not. I mean, there's a lot of discussion with that out there. And just the business and building climate now versus if we spent money remodeling here and say it only lasted 10 years, maybe the calculations were way off, what do you do next? You spend another 24, 28 million, there's a lot of different moving parts here. So it's a long way from being hammered out per se, but discussion on a lot of different fronts has taken place already on how to do this. And the public's input, so they know that we're going to build just because we want to get our name on a plaque. We're doing it. If we end up building, it's going to be because it makes sense for the county long-term.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item C, schedule. Committee meetings due to budgetary sessions. I don't know, it should be scheduled, right?
Well, if you don't mind, let's first take the item with the budget committee, the whole schedule for 2019.
Oh, so I'm sorry.
They are tied together. Board, what you have in your packet is a draft put together of the schedule for the budget sessions. This was developed after soliciting availability from the board and the different department heads. This is annually a challenge to try and find availability that works for everybody, but I believe we were able to do it. This schedule was sent out to the department heads last week, soliciting if there were any conflicts to be aware of. I will note we did not include at this time some of the outside entities' time to come in front of the board. I wanted to make sure you're aware of that. And if you wanted to direct staff otherwise, we haven't included Initiative Foundation, Economic Development, Library Board, those types of groups that we do submit, that you typically submit solicitations for contributions. So at this time, we've just got staff and the departments plugged in there, with the exception of soil and water we did put in due to the amount of the budget that we have with them. In addition, if we were to take action or some change in plans regarding the AIS project, I thought it'd be good to discuss that. You'll notice the first date is actually the week before, where, as discussed, we'll do the overview of the budget and the 5-year forecast, talk about a summary of all the positions submitted, as well as reviewing the capital improvement plan and those appropriation requests. So the action would be, if the schedule works, to adopt this schedule. If there were to be any revisions from department heads or outside entities, whatever, we could bring that to a future board meeting, but wanted to get this on the calendars of everybody as soon as possible, because it is always challenging to schedule.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the schedule, tentative schedule, that we approve it, so.
Yeah, I will second that. And Mr. Chair, Coordinator Kelly, to answer your question, did those groups request to meet with us, or are they comfortable submitting a written, their written request as they have in the past? I don't think that if we have, for example, the library board, that's pretty much a statutory
Correct.
number, so we don't have disagreement with that. That's something that's determined by the state
JPA.
statute, so.
Correct. And in my quick review of the outside entities we've received so far, there have not been changes in request funding from previous years.
Okay.
Requesting flat, so I leave it up to the board. We can try and work something into the schedule if you're interested in it. Otherwise, I just focused on staff, knowing we were hoping to try and wrap up these meetings in August, if at all possible, this year, so.
Yeah,
It looks fine to me.
Yeah, the only thing that I was going to caveat, guys, is if we have a wrap-up meeting on the 29th at the 11 a.m., can make the road and bridge at 10, but the 11 a.m., it depends how much we're going to be pushing to the end to wrap up. That one I would be leaving, because I have to leave at right exactly 11 o'clock to make it to Jordan, Minnesota for some work that day. So
Okay.
that'd be the only one that I would be requesting, if we're carrying a lot of stuff to discuss on the backside, that we would be able to move that one maybe to the next day, to the 30th or something, to wrap it all up. But
Mr. Chair, it's always challenging to know coming into it as well.
Right.
We set this early before we've given a full review to the budgets. We do have 2 dates scheduled for road and bridge. There's been years where we've wrapped up in the first meeting.
Right.
We have,
right, so we might be able to get that all done at 10 o'clock, so.
correct, so
Yep.
there may be some revisions that take place either weeks from now or the day before, depending on how things shake
Right.
out.
Good.
And, Mr. Chair, perhaps it wouldn't hurt to set a time, a tentative wrap-up date
If needed.
for remaining issues. And that
That
could
gives
go
us
to
some
your
backup,
30th
in case
date.
if one of them
That
canceled, we
already.
can always move it to that last
Right,
date, yeah.
because sometimes things happen, and
'Cause- All right, well, we can, we can just
Or
come
do you
back to
wanna
that, do
just-
it
Come
later?
back to that.
We'll come back to that, so we have a motion and a second on the agenda, we're going to stick with it as is, and we'll just modify it as we go if we need to
Yeah, we'll
change
know,
that last
we'll
one.
know.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we have a budget schedule.
Yay.
Now, the reschedule for 8/22, what are we changing there?
Committee meetings.
So,
Oh,
Mr.
there's committee meetings, that's
So,
right. yeah.
Mr. Chair, August 22nd would be a committee date typically. Typically, we do committees in the morning. Right now, the budget schedule for the 22nd, the last timed item begins at 10:30. The thought was we could still hold the technology meeting as needed, which typically is at 11 o'clock, so we could wrap up by 11, or those that need to attend technology could step out to that. However, we would need to schedule any other committee meetings, a personnel or a building or those types for that day, probably in the
At 1
afternoon.
o'clock?
If that's workable, that was going to be
Yeah.
my proposal, to do at
Yep.
1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to reschedule committee meetings for August 22nd to commence at 1 p.m.
I'll second that.
All right, you'll be at 11 still, okay.
And just for clarification, the plan is to have the IT meeting at 11 o'clock is scheduled then.
Okay, perfect.
But any others would be in the afternoon.
All right. Now, discussion of the September 4th county board meeting, the first day of school in Minnesota.
You didn't have us.
Of the continuation and the necessity. You want to talk to Lee first?
I was just looking back at that previous item. I think it'd be good to get a second and a vote
Oh,
on
sorry,
that.
we had a second, I thought we did,
thought
we all approved it.
I missed it, I'm
Oh, so we
sorry.
had a motion by Commissioner Burrell, a second by Commissioner Hewson. Oh, on the,
Potter and me.
oh, Potter and Hewson, yes. Okay, well, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. For the reschedule, you're right, we didn't
Thank
vote on that
you.
one.
Sorry for the
I
confusion.
got
there.
mixed up on the, I thought we were,
It's a meeting of
Moving so
committee
fast.
minutes.
Your mind just races so fast, sometimes you need to slow down.
too many meetings we're scheduling.
We're certainly doing a lot of that. Moving to the next item regarding this September 4th. This was an item that was brought up a couple meetings ago, laid over till today's date to revisit it. Just wanted to bring it back up, as was the direction of the board, to discuss whether we would want to look at canceling it, being the day after a holiday and busy times. I know also the ERP session will be taking place that day as well, so if the board desires to cancel it, otherwise we can leave it as scheduled.
And to note, though, is, I mean, yeah, I'm, that one there, I'm questionable whether I'll be able to attend, I think, as well as yourself, Lee, are you potentially going to be out on that one as well?
I'm going to have, Sue's probably going to cover the meeting for me today, or that day.
Unless we have anything big, I don't see a problem with canceling.
So the ERP, what the time? what's the
That's all
time?
day.
That's going to be an
That's an
all-day
all
thing?
day.
All day.
Is that for like 3 days?
It's
4th,
3
5th,
days,
and
yeah.
6th?
Going to be the
That's two
4th through the
commissioners in there
7th.
already?
Yep. And then there'll be a lot of our staff will be in there. The auditors, Hevela will be in there, Adam Tagara will be in there. A lot of our staff will be wrapped up in with that as well.
Yeah.
That's the only reason, just because it worked out, we don't have anything majorly pressing that we probably can't address the week before or the week after. But I'm looking for direction from the board, so.
Well, let's say the case in point is that we have a lot of staff. ERP is a big initiative. We've been planning this. We are going forward with it. We're going to be missing 2 commissioners, and we're going to miss a lot of staff that day. So I would make a motion that we cancel the September 4th.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Potter, a second by Commissioner Burrell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It'll make things a lot smoother for everyone there with that move.
Yeah,
Just because of all the stuff we have going on that day.
That's a big project.
And I'd hate to have people coming in and out trying to maneuver that, so.
We needed to focus on the ERP, so we don't need this distraction in the middle of it.
Perfect. We'll start off with advisory. I don't know, does anybody want to start off first?
I'll just do real quick. The Emergency Services Board, we met in St. Cloud last Wednesday. Basically, well, we did a lot of things, but the main thing was we approved our budget, so that will be coming down. Lee probably has it already, it
Yep,
sounds
we
like.
already
He's
have it.
nodding his
Thank
head
you.
over there, so. And that's about all I have.
Yeah, we didn't really have time for the committee the last couple of weeks, so I had Safe Communities of Wright County actually a couple of weeks ago, and we're, very grateful that we are actually over 8 months now, going on 9 months without a fatality in the county, so that's been just something to really celebrate. We got $2,000 from United Way, which is great, and a 2018-2019 Safe Roads Grant Resolution for $26,000. We still have the Sober Cab program going for between a number of bars in Wright County and Safe Communities. When they first started, they were pretty much helping fund the rides, sober rides home, but now they're getting $4 from the bar and $1 from Safe Communities. Our funding has, gone down a bit, so that's still something that actually helped get a lot of the cab companies in Wright County started by starting this program. So they've picked it up from there, and it's been a great thing. They have a number of classes starting for parent-teen presentations, and also what's called now Wright Road. It was formerly Drive Right, but when that all had changed, so a number of classes scheduled for that coming up, and that's about all I have on that. I also just got a flyer from someone who's working with the Rivers of Hope, and is sponsored by Central Minnesota Mental Health Center, and it's called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. It's a fundraiser to support the victims of domestic violence. It's from, August 9th, 2018, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Monticello Community Center, the west parking lot by the Swan River Montessori School. They're going to have a walk, so if anyone is interested in that, I can, please contact me, but I think that's a good way to raise awareness for domestic abuse victims. And also...
So are you offering high heels for Commissioner Vetch to borrow?
Yeah, sure. And also our regional crime lab, Midwest Regional Forensic Lab, sent out this flyer about they're having the National Forensic Science Week celebration Wednesday, September 19th from 9 to 3:30, and they're having classes on multi-section testing requests, the turnaround times, drug evidence packaging, lots of different classes, some of their success stories, their current drug trends, that kind of thing. And registration is $10 per person, and the space is limited at 50 attendees, so it's first come, first serve. If anyone would like information on that, it's RSVP by August 31st. So, and that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right. Myself, last week on July 25th, myself, Tony Rasmussen from the Assessor's Office, Tammy Veit from the Auditor's Office, and Lee Kelly, we had a meeting with Excel Energy, kind of over some of the moves and things that they have going on. This will be it's kind of the ongoing discussion of the future of the power plant in Monticello, property tax evaluations, and what our future will look like with Excel Energy as a taxpayer. So lots of information to come. I have a good handout. I think it's on my desk. I'll kind of share it with everyone and kind of answer questions with it. But good. Second of all, I thank Matt Detchen and Greg Kreisler. They helped me put on an open house for County Ditch 35, which I kind of entitle it County Ditches 101. Mm-hmm. We walked them through the process, how to petition for repair, how the assessments work, how redeterminations work. We walked them through all the aspects of it, and really we empowered the ditch beneficiaries on what they can do, what their options are, and how to work with the county to get what they need done. I'm hoping we can do this more often. I mean, at least unfortunately, I look back, generations probably weren't aware of what a ditch is and how the ditches work, so I felt it was really helpful to a lot of the people in the room, so.
That's great, because a lot of people still don't know what the original intent was, and what ditches are, what the systems, what the impact is for farming and that kind of thing.
Well, and I was amazed. I mean, literally only one person in the room knew about Drainage DB and, how they can access that. Most of everyone in the room didn't realize that in this case of this ditch, that the benefited rolls are from 1918. They're a century-old benefited rolls. I mean, that's in trying to explain to them, okay, we will spend money to get a new benefited rolls, but it's going to help you because we are going to actually change that pie to what it probably should be because the technology that they made a benefited rolls in 1918 just wasn't there.
No,
It was at the time.
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Times have changed.
Before they invented technology.
So it was a good move, but that was a great night last night.
They had abacus back then. That was
Yeah.
technology.
Oh, yeah, it was great. It was a different kind of technology.
With that, I'll turn it over to you, Commissioner Potter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week on Wednesday, I went to a debt manager's PFM, that's that magic fund with Bob Hevola down at the State Fairgrounds. It's about public debt and how do you manage it, how to forecast everything else. I have the 3-ring binder back there in the bullpen. I also got an extra copy that Hevola brought back for Lee Kelly to see for other people, just to help us. It's tools to help us with budgeting, forecasting, which is our big thing because we have growth. So now, how do we make sure that our growth is managed as best we can? It was an all-day affair. It was a very educational. Got to meet the people behind the Magic Fund and how their different perspectives are. One in particular with the forecasting, I'd asked Hevola if there's a chance they have that person come out here and address the full board on that, because I think that's important, because I tend to have a little bit more experience in that than the rest of you here. But I think it's good information for us to know that what the thought process is of why we're strategically planning A, B, and C out there, and pitfalls and probabilities of recessions, everything is how you kind of factor all these in. I think it's real interesting, and I think you will come away learning something from it. Next item last Thursday was the Highway 25 Coalition, and that was an interesting one because this is where we decided to move forward with 3 different options, 2 to 3 options. Option A, Highway 25, the existing one, option D, and then there was also option E, which has been contentious from the beginning, although some people tend to forget that the issues involved with that were raised right from day one with Monticello. It doesn't fit into their land use plan, everything else, and it just kept going on and on. To go forward with A, County Highway 25, and D, I made a motion to proceed with those 3. And it failed for lack of, because both sides of the river have to have somebody agree on that there. And it failed that way. The next motion was to include E, and that failed because nobody on this side of the river agreed to that. The big concern is that the E does not fit in Monticello's plan at all. They have pipes in the ground, everything else, and when we first started doing this, and if some of you remember that I was on this before we even turned into coalition for a couple of years, just to where do we need to go next. The idea was to not have it so it damages anybody. You can all claim damages at one point or another, but the one with the most damage would be Monticello because of the pipes in the ground. The other side of the river does not have any pipes, any developments or small subdivision development, nothing really major out there. And it really doesn't do much good for Wright County either by having it out there because it's out in the middle of nowhere. So it got basically tabled it for another month for more discussion, and I think the city of Becker was the one that was, you say, okay, E doesn't really benefit them either because it's too far off the path. A has always been Monticello's #1 choice, but with the nuclear plant and everything going on there and the discussions, the likelihood of that one rising to the top for any kind of immediate crossing is probably slim. Any discussion also has to include the existing bridge, which makes sense because they've already invested that money. Option D, to me, it's pretty clear, is the most doable, the least expensive, least intrusive. It still has its issues, like all do. One of the issues it does not have is wetlands. And anybody knows that when you're dealing with the Corps of Engineers on a wetland issue, well, you can You can wait a long time to get a decision on that one. D also fits into where there's an access on 94 already with a bridge that quite a bit of investment's already there. It's all geared and ready for it. Sherburne County's land use plan and their former engineer had dash lines on the map that matched right up with it, with County Road 17, which they spent a lot of money to bypass a big lake there. And so it's a matter of educating Becker that this one actually still does benefit you, but E definitely would not benefit anything because it's just too far off the path. No road connects up to it. So it'll be more discussion on that, and I believe that it's a test of wills. I mean, I just cannot in good faith go forward with something that is going to cause harm to one of our communities. And they've noted that, and it's just not going to happen. I mean, and if the other side of the river decides they want to kill the project over this, I guess it was a bunch of years we tried for, lack of getting something done. Because this will be a regional connection between 10 and 94, and this is our best prospect. We only have until 2022 because that's when the build grant money authorization goes away. So we need to get ourselves online with this. To me, this is the simplest one because you have the three components, each county road going up to the river and the bridge. There's three separate funding mechanisms there. And if all we're doing is looking at a bridge, it's going to be a lot easier than trying to do the bridge and the wetlands and the interchange and everything else that goes along with it. It's just one of those things that hopefully common sense will prevail and it makes most to go this way. And that's all I have.
Hats off to Commissioner Potter for defending Wright County and Monticello. I know how challenging that meeting was. I've heard a lot of discussion for a lot of people, and I'm hoping that it'll come out the right way in August. That's,
It'll come to a head in August. It'll either go that way or it will. The other thing, if it can't break that tie or break that stalemate there, then what we'll do is we'll just finish up the study where it's at and just button that part up and have that ready for the future. So there's two ways it could go. We could either proceed or we'll just finish up with what we have now and be done with it.
all right. Well, do we have any other or Lee, do you have anything for?
Yeah, I can touch on a few things. As was mentioned in the technology committee minutes, been having some follow-up meetings with Infotech and IT staff to get the ERP folks all scheduled for the places we need them on that day to discuss each of the processes that will be incorporated in the ERP. As was mentioned in other minutes too, we've started soliciting volunteers for the front information desk. We've already had 2 folks interested, so that's been positive. I will be meeting and Alan will be meeting on Friday with BKV to start talking about the next phase of schematic design with our new building and how to coordinate that and the schedule with that. One thing I've been working on with the IT department is some strategy meetings of how to leverage, since we're both central services kind of agencies within the county, how can we uniformly leverage strategy and move forward in the county. We'll be planning some meetings with the board to discuss, and as Julie, our communication specialist, has discussed with you guys, we're trying to kind of pull that all together for a technology strategy moving forward. So a lot going on as it is right at the beginning of budget time. Department heads have submitted their budgets, so we're in the process of pulling that all together and starting to review. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I will note that Commissioner Dahlheiden gives us thumbs up for August 7th.
Oh, he does?
He does.
Good.
All right, well, with that then, we will be adjourned at 10:38.